Okay, it says we are live. So welcome, Katie. Today we have Katie Horton back again by popular demand. Katie, we
Hello.
got a lot of great response from your last video. So we're so excited to have you join us again today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. It's an honor to be here again. Truly, I'm so grateful.
Oh.
So, thanks for having
Oh,
me.
well, that's so kind of you. No, it was so much fun talking with you. And I know we've said this before, but you're just such a bright light and we just appreciate you. And, you bring so much knowledge and not to keep repeating the same thing over and over, but at such a young age, I'm just so impressed because there's not that many people that are awakened at the age that you're at. So you clearly are a star seed. I think you definitely came in, as they say, as I like to say, fully loaded. All of the clairs opened up, just ready to rock and roll. So I love that. And we need more people like that. And hopefully by listening to you, people will also start to open up more because I know we activate people, right? When we have these conversations and there's memories that are deep inside where they're like, wait, I knew that already. And how did I know that? And so this is just a remembering a lot of times for people when they hear these things. So anyway, I just wanted to say that and welcome you in and just say thank you. I'm so excited to have you here again. And how are you doing, by the way?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm good. Good is, broad, but I've had as I know a lot of people have had a crazy past few months. I know I have just energetically, with everything going on, but overall I'm good and just grateful to be here. Grateful for my beautiful audience and like people I've been working with recently. It's been like otherworldly. And to go off what you said, yeah, I feel like doing this work, it's been mind blowing because it's like everyone is a reflection of me. So it's like whenever you saying that, seeing that in me, like you're a star seed, right? I believe we're all aliens. We're all from everywhere else coming here with a mission.
True.
So it's just kind of like beautiful. But yeah, I've been good. How have you been?
I've been good as well. Thank you for asking. Yeah, no, I appreciate what you just said, and I agree with you. I think we're all, star seeds in some way. We all have some type of alien DNA, we'll call it. And so we all have that chemical makeup in our background. It's just a matter of when we awaken and realize that. So and as for me, and I know we talked a little about this before we started. You had said you want to ask me some questions about it, and I was just talking with another guest about this before we started recording, and he was like, when did you awaken? And I had to think about it for a minute. I'm like, I think I've always been on this like awakening journey.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's been like a moment of awakening that's taken place for me. I do remember at a very young age, I got my hands on a book about reincarnation. I have no idea where this book came from. And I was very young at the time. I was adolescent, like grade, school age, probably maybe 13, 14 years old. And my parents, by the way, are very devout Catholic. I grew up very Catholic,
Mhm.
Catholic grammar school, high school, and college.
Yeah.
So I was indoctrinated, but that never quite resonated with me. I always believed in a higher power and that there is a God, but I didn't really connect with the idea that I needed to communicate with a third party to connect with God. Like
Yeah.
that never made sense to me. Like, oh wait, I have to go inside this little closet with a man on the other side of a screen and tell him my sins so that he can tell me what I need to do to be forgiven. Like that just didn't quite make sense to me. So
Drink the wine.
exactly. I know looking back, that's a little bit weird now that I think about it. There's a lot of rituals that definitely don't jive for me any longer. And so I think I started that process really early on of awakening to this doesn't feel right. I mean, I don't know what feels right, but I know this doesn't feel right. And
Yeah.
then like many, I always say I went back to sleep. I became a sleeper for many years,
Yeah.
all through probably high school, through college even, and even into my early 20s. And, just got into my 3D world and just, doing the grind, going to work every day, trying to get a job and make money and do all the things.
Yeah.
And then again, fast forward, I somehow, had little moments of awakening throughout this whole journey. And I know it sounds funny, but I feel like one of my moments of awakening was when I encountered Tony Robbins. Like, I think,
Oh,
again, I
yeah.
was in my early
Same.
20s because I started to realize, oh, I have power. Like
Yeah.
power is inside of me to make decisions. I'm not at the effect of the world. I actually get to do things and create things for myself
Yeah.
based on my own intentions. And that was an epiphany for me. But once again, I went back to sleep. I learned a little bit and then I went back to sleep. And this was just kind of the process. And so then I always had moments where I encountered a new teacher. And, they always say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that happened multiple times for me in my life. And so I kind of grasped little sound bites here and there from different people that I would learn from. And this kind of compiled to an overall awakening process, I think, for me. And I would say, just to wrap it up here, the final awakening moment, if we want to call it that, was, and it's a little funny to say, but this was only probably 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, I had been listening to Dolores Cannon up to that point already. And Barbara Marciniak is amazing too. But
more than you know. It's changed
amazing.
my books.
Absolutely. Oh, she's incredible. And then I had this moment where all of a sudden, out of the blue, although we know it's not really out of the blue, but an epiphany came to me where I need to start watching Star Trek. Never in my life had I ever watched Star Trek. It never even occurred to me. Like, I even had friends, brothers growing up who loved Star Trek, and they watched it religiously. And I would go over to their house to play on play dates, and Star Trek would be on in the background. Zero interest in it. And then one day I was like, as a full-on adult, like, I need to watch Star Trek. And so I don't know what the calling was. Obviously, we kind of have an idea now, but clearly that was the universe, like, tapping me on the shoulder, like, this is how we're going to get your attention. Like, this is part of your wake-up call. And when I started watching, I went back to, season 1, episode 1. I didn't go back to, Captain Kirk, because everyone always asks me that. I started with Picard, and then I moved forward with from there. But it just resonated as the truth. And I mean, I realize it's a sci-fi television show. However, we all know that there's truth built into all of these things. So that just resonated for me. And I just was like, oh, this is the truth. This makes sense to me. And then of course you start going down the rabbit holes and you start researching and you're like, well, this isn't true. And that's not true. And so anyway, long story short, that is my process, because we talked a little about me sharing that today. So I wanted to share that with you. And unlike you, I did not come in, completely aware of what's happening. I had to learn it as I went.
Yeah, I love that you say this though, because I always want to mention, I also didn't, and I'll give a backstory. So and this is the thing, I almost view you describing what you were like, I woke up and I went back to sleep. I feel like you, in a way, you broke through layers in your body. You were still, awakening. It was just layers at a time. Your human needed to almost integrate that and go back to being asleep. But in reality, you were actually integrating those little awakenings. I feel like we all have that, and then one day it was like, okay, we're on this road here. We're going to keep going. So I feel like that's how all of our journeys have been. And honestly, I love how you said Tony Robbins and that whole realm, and even Star Trek, as you said, there's truth in all these, and for me, for example, when I watched Avatar, it was a remembrance of home. I was like,
yeah, so that's a big one for people.
Yeah. So I do feel as though there's truth in all these sci-fi, movies and shows and things, because there's something there, why someone had to have created that with their vision. So that, and then also when you were talking about Tony Robbins, I love that he's been also a big teacher for me. And I feel honestly, that realm of mindset, self-development, it's such a gateway for people. For me, it was the same thing. My awakening began when I got into the world of, oh my gosh, I can make money online. I can I was I could start an Amazon business. I was thinking of all these ways to have financial freedom and do all this stuff. And then I was getting into Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor, all those mindset focused,
right.
But that was my drive, because there was this part of me that was I feel there's more freedom I can attain and grab in my life. And then obviously that led to the world of manifestation. And then it was spirituality. And it's oh, here we are now, in this world of consciousness. So I do feel that for a lot of people, it's needed, because it's still so human and it's so real and attainable on the physical, that teachers like that, they're just representing the power that we can have in our life. So I just say that in the sense of like myself as well. I did come into this world. I feel very sensitive, very aware, very energetically like what's going on. But I never actually knew until like recent years of like, oh, this is why I'm here. So I do feel like a lot of people, and I honestly say this because I feel like people need to hear this. Like, I feel like a lot of people are actually same as me. Like they come in, they're like really energetically or sensitively aware. I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah.
But then it doesn't click until later on in life when they're like, oh, this is the reason. So
Right.
for me, it was also similar. I had waves of like waking up to, freedom in certain ways. And then it finally got to a point where I was just like on this journey and ascension, whatever you want to call it, is like just taken off, and it's just there's no going back. So it's a wild journey. And like I talk to my friends about this too. And it's just like this whole life, we talk about this a lot. Like it's like a scavenger hunt. It's like a mystery school. Like every day I wake up, I'm like, who am I going to meet today? What's going to happen? I don't know if you feel this way too, but I just feel like
Yeah.
when you go on this awakening journey, it's like you're not living a normal life, and it's
Right.
so fun.
Yeah, no, I resonate with so much of what you just said. And one thing I want to add to that is that, I know a lot of people suffer from depression, right? And they talk about this and they're like, I don't know what to do. And I'm really, frustrated with my life. I'm stuck. What I always like to think about, and this isn't a cure-all for everybody, of course, but what I always think about for myself is that, and you just kind of referenced it there, I don't know what's coming next. I don't know what's around that corner. And when I think back on times in my life when something great happened, I didn't know that was coming either. So
Yeah.
that means that whatever is coming next could be so amazing, but you can't give up before that time. You have to keep moving forward, because if you do and you keep faith and you have hope, then you will step into what that next great thing is for you. It's there, it's waiting for you. You just have to keep going so that you can get to it.
Yeah.
Because again, I look back like on the things that I manifested in my life that I'm truly blessed and grateful for. Those are the things that I didn't know if I was going to get those things, but I put the work into, being hopeful and
Yeah.
manifesting what it was that I wanted. And then it happened, but
Yeah.
I didn't know. So you have to just know that it will work out for
Yeah.
you, but you've got to have that hope and faith that it's coming.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, 100%. This is why I feel like I keep hearing Tony Robbins, like it's so that realm of like I don't want to say hard work because like it's this journey is supposed to be beautiful and fun, but like in a way, I would say a lot of how I got to where I am, and you as well, most likely, like just to have a channel, like doing the work to edit all this, it takes discipline, focus, and like putting in that time to really make your dreams happen. Like you really do. That's why I feel like that world of like self-development, it does play a part in this whole journey, because if you and it's also simultaneously, like you said, to detach. Like you don't know how your life's going to turn out. A year ago, I never
Right.
knew I would have a YouTube channel, be doing readings. Like it was not in my consciousness, but I knew that I was destined to do something that I loved, where I really was like putting in work to build an audience, to impact the world in some way. But the way that it actually looks on that physical, we can't expect it. So it's like that detachment of having those expectations of like the exact way you want it to turn out is just not the way to go. And it's been such a lesson in my life too, because I've always been someone to set expectations. I don't know about you, but like I
Mhm.
definitely been better at it, but I'm always like having this specific vision. It's going to be this. And then, spirit, whatever you want to call it, divine source, even our higher self, like, yes, we have a plan, but we have free will. So this whole life is not supposed to be this like orchestrated, everything is planned out for you, and I know like I myself and a lot of people want to know, okay, what's the exact purpose? What does it look like? This, that. It's like, it really comes back to detaching from the way it's going to look, but also putting in that work, as you said, like
Right.
manifestation too. It's not that it's a grueling, like hardworking journey, but in a way it's like, you got to have focus. You got to have, your eye on the prize. You got to know like what you want, and also like have that discipline. I'm sure you can feel this, like the amount of times where I have stayed in and not gone out with friends because I needed to edit
Mhm.
multiple videos, or, brainstorm, like really, really putting time on myself. And not even just when it comes to like, manifesting, but I just feel like in general, like my health and this whole soul awakening journey is like really prioritizing you, setting boundaries. And it's like, I honestly think, I always say the word, it's like a power move. You know, you and I, people like us on this path, like if you can set those boundaries for yourself and like really prioritize like your dreams and your goals and just like your energy, the magic comes from that, you know. But I think a lot of people
Right.
have a hard time doing that because it's like the shiny
Mhm.
object syndrome, like, oh, well, I could do this,
Yeah.
that, you know. And I've obviously I'm not perfect, like, but it's definitely been something that I've always had that like hunger for it, like for what I want. And it's like when you have that hunger, I feel like you'll make anything happen, you know. And I believe that's how you make
Absolutely.
this podcast happen.
Yes. That's right. Absolutely. And you know what's interesting is I love my Bashar teachings. You know, Daryl Inca, who channels Bashar, I just think there's so much great information that comes through his teachings and his channeling. And I just heard him say something yesterday for the first time that I'd never heard him say before. And I've listened to a lot of his teachings. And I thought it was such a great thought. He said, the best times that you've had in your life so far will be the worst times you have compared to what's coming up. So that's an amazing thing to think about, you know, like whatever's ahead is even better than what you've already experienced that you felt was so great.
Yeah.
So that's such an important thing to think about. And then going back to what we were talking about with Tony Robbins, because, you know, I'm a big fan, but I think, like you said, that's more of a gateway, that mindset, belief system and, you know, subconscious behavior patterns. And actually that probably resonates with me the most in terms of how to, you know, talk to people and help them uncover their subconscious belief patterns. But I do think from a mindset perspective, that whole self-development route is great because it's for analytical thinkers. And that's actually what I identify as most is I'm a person that when I look at a situation, I look at it 30 different ways and I'm like, okay, let me figure out the best way to do this.
Yeah.
And so that resonates for me, you know. So that's, I think, why he probably entered as a teacher into my life early on. And then I also went down the road of Bob Proctor, and there's so many others that I can't even think to list right now, but many books that I've read about this. I do want to just acknowledge we've got EP Pet, who is awesome. We love you, EP. You're on all of our lives. And he says you love your channel and love your guests. That's so nice. Thank you so much, EP.
Thank you.
And then another comment, learning about and how to have natural fluid, loving unattachment is key to manifesting and a big transitional conscious unlearning and learning. Absolutely.
True.
100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I will
So-
just stop what you were saying. Well, I didn't want to interrupt. I think you were going somewhere with what you were saying, unless you were finished.
No, that I think that was it. I just wanted to recognize that there is different avenues and pathways that people can get to this understanding and these spiritual beliefs that people have, and also the awakening that we have going on the planet right now. And it doesn't matter what direction you go, you know, it's just, you just have to get there. Regardless of how you get there, that's not, you know, the important thing. It's just make sure you're working on yourself, because that's just going to take that next step and open the path for you. And the next right thing will come your way.
1,000,000%. Yeah. And I agree. I mean, we all have to get there some way. And I'm the same as you in that, like, I come from a family and just background of like logic, analytical thinking. And, you know, I went down, you know, college, corporate route, that, and then is like, you know, definitely battled that side of my human with like my soul intuitive self coming through, like this healer of like, how is this going to work? Right. It's like so confusing, but that's why I feel the same. My gateway needed to kind of be in more of that like mindset realm to decondition those thoughts. Cause I do believe, and I'm such a strong proponent of this, you know, I always say like, we're moving towards the heart. Like we're accessing like living in love and all that beautiful, wonderful, juicy stuff. But the truth is, in order for us to get there, like that end point we're talking about, you got to go through the mind, and we're always going to have the mind here. And so let's use it as a tool. Let's decondition it. Let's reprogram it in a positive way, which is why I do think people like Tony Robbins, these, you know, mindset coaches and speakers are amazing, because they are that gateway for so many. And honestly, for myself, I don't know about you, like I, especially to break through some patterns, I needed that like harsh, like I used to, it's so funny. I honestly still sometimes go back and watch these videos, but you know, those like on YouTube, there's like mindset, motivational 10-minute videos. It's like Tony Robbins with these inspirational music in the background.
Yeah.
It would hype me up, because I needed that amp to get me going and remember where I was going. And I think a lot of people sometimes need that like harsh truth to, whether it's in the realm of like getting your health in check physically, or, you know, it's like setting discipline for yourself, or getting to your goals, for me, it was like, I needed that. I would go on long walks and I was just like amping myself up with these mindset videos, and then like doing the, mindset work and all that, to then, I finally felt like I cleared the space of like, okay, let's tap into the magic, let's go into more of
Mm-hmm.
this. And so I do feel it's important to say, like, yeah, my journey has been similar to you and many others in that way. I just think some people find comfort in like staying in one place, and not that that's bad, it's some people's journeys, but it's like, if you keep pushing, you keep nudging through, there's always something. And I feel like, I don't know about you, I've always had that like seeker mentality. I actually have said this before. I feel like maybe I said this last time, that curiosity I've always had from a young age. So it was like, okay, mindset, like, let's see how to make money online. And then it was like, okay, this is,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't fulfill my soul. Let's keep pushing further. It was
Right.
constant, that like curiosity and that hunger, I guess you could say, for something more, something deeper and more love centered. So I feel like some people, it's like to go a little further with it is what's going to get you kind of like, moving through to the other side. And as well, I do feel like, yeah, people just need that comfort. And I feel like it even ties back to religion. Like, I feel like I've seen a big wave of like that Christian movement right now. But I think a lot of people just find there's like comfort in knowing their structure and stability, because spirituality can be so vast and unknown. For me, I love it. I'm like, give me the unknown. But some people, it's like,
Yeah.
I know that there's something here,
Right.
random, but I just kind of noticed that with a lot of people, there's just like that need to have structure because of that mind. But if you just keep pushing forward, there's always something more. And then you enter this
Right.
space of like this crazy ascension journey.
Right. Exactly. And when you were just talking about how, you had to get amped up on some of the videos from Tony Robbins, the thought I was having is, sometimes you can't go from 0 to 100, right? You have to kind of sometimes slow step and baby step up that frequency ladder. It's not, you can't tell somebody who's deep in depression, like, hey, rah, rah, like, you need to feel great today, because
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense for that person. They need to take that next level up. They need to go from depression to neutral
yeah,
first, right? And
yeah,
that next step up, and that could just be like, let's get you outside in nature. Like, you
yeah,
don't have to listen to a video, you don't have to do anything. You just need to get out of the house and start to like be in the natural frequencies, which will naturally raise your vibration. But then, the universe has a way of meeting us where we are. So the next step from there, once you kind of get to neutral, yes, then you can get to that next level up where you, not that you're going rah rah and,
yeah,
swinging from the chandelier, but you're actually just, you're content. You don't have to
yeah,
be like running around with a, big perma smile on your face all day, but you're content in your life. You're like, I'm good. Like, I feel okay with everything right now. And so I think that's important for people to note. And I think you did a video recently about this, is that, there's toxic happiness in the world right now. And people are running around telling you like, just feel good and be positive. And it's like, how can I be positive when I have an illness or I have something horrible happening in my life? And we have to recognize that and meet people at that place.
yeah,
But there's always an opportunity to step out of that place, even if it's just a little bit, right?
yeah.
And just move up on that scale of vibration just a little bit. So that's kind of what I took away from one of your recent videos, which I love, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I found it so important. I think it was like, honestly, really recent video. I just feel like, and even I'm conscious of this, or have been more conscious, I do spread a lot of like love, light, happy, you like free energy. But I want people to remember, like, I myself am also a human. I have my days where I'm just so frustrated and angry at the world and
Mhm.
myself. And we all have that, and this path can very much be like, come back to your heart, be in love. And it's like, that's
Right.
just not real, right? We are a
Right.
soul who merge with our human, who has a lot of crunchy emotions and intense feelings that we have to feel. So I do feel like it's important to say, and I've seen this, like, no matter how powerful a human, a healer, a teacher that, in the world, like, they all have their days, right? We're human beings.
Mhm.
So I do think it's important. And yeah, that toxic positivity, and I know that a lot of people in like the spiritual space know it's like, okay, was spiritual bypassing. Like, we need to feel those
Right.
emotions, and we need to
Yes.
remember, yeah, like, that's the only way. I always say, like, we're master transmuters, meaning we come
Mhm.
here as a soul to our human body to
Yeah.
drop in, and we're like, whoa, there's a lot of, trauma here. There's a lot of emotions, all of it that we
Mhm.
feel energetically, that if we were just constantly like, okay, live in light, that's how we're going to heal. Like, we are bypassing a big role, which is to move through those emotions. And it's not always going to feel comfortable. And this is why too, I'm like, I've found for me, it's not to say like you have to be grumpy, unhappy all the time and like feel. It's just more so like when they come up, just love it. Like, just like, you know what, own it. We say like ownership, just radical ownership of like, I just don't feel good. I'm going to sit in this today and just let myself be in this ickiness, move through the other side, you know? But I do, I do feel that's so important, because it's just the real fact that, you know, and even though I even share like, we're moving towards the 5D, we're all like moving towards a heart-centered space. Like, you know, again, a part of the way we're going to get there is being so enveloped in the human experience, being so real with ourselves and with the world, and so honest about how we're feeling. Like, we are all aware that there's madness on our earth right now. It's like, let's not like escape that fact, you know, but also not get trapped in the, you know, because I know some people, it's like, oh, my life is so hard, this and that. And it's like, I'm very aware, you know, everyone in the world right now has their own experience, and there's so much pain occurring on an individual level, collective level. But we also have to remember like that radical responsibility and ownership of like, we do get to change everything. And I think it circles back to the whole mindset, Tony Robbins. It's like, if you're unhappy, like change it. You know, if you're not satisfied with, you know, your career, your life, it's not to say that overnight you're going to manifest a new career. No, but it's to say like, you have to put in the work to make the choice to decide, okay, if I'm unhappy here, you know, I'm sitting with these emotions, it seems to show that my physical reality is not the way I want it to look. How can I change it, right? How can I, as I am the sovereign, you know, owner of my life, how can I make the choice to change my life? And that's where I feel like that victimhood has to slip away. It has to, like, we have to, way we're going to move forward. And not only too, like, I always like, the only way we're going to heal the earth, not even that, like, the only way we're going to live a beautiful life is when we truly take radical responsibility, you know? And then it's like, it might be scary at first, and you may have experienced this. Like, I've had to do this in my life, to be honest, where I'm like, okay, these things that have happened to me, like, definitely was like I did that. It was like, it's really hard for us. And, you know, we've all experienced that, like taking responsibility for like, maybe things we wish we didn't do, but it also is taking your power back, saying, well, because I did it, I can change it, you know? And so it's like a harsh truth, but also the most empowering thing you'll ever experience. So that's my take on that.
And that can be a big trigger for people too, when, you know, especially, and I understand people are going through some heavy stuff, you know, and so I don't diminish that. I understand that they have a lot happening in their lives and a lot of traumatic events too. And so it's a little bit hard sometimes to reflect back to them, you actually had a part to play in this, because the immediate trigger is, how dare you? How dare you tell me that I had something to do with bringing this illness onto myself or my family or whoever? So that's a little bit of I find it's a difficult conversation to have sometimes with friends or family. And sometimes they're just not ready to hear it. You know, some people just want to live in their victimhood, and you have to let them, because it's part of their lesson, you know, in their life. We have to remember, at times we can't take people off their path. We have to understand they are on a path as well. And all we can do is reflect to them an opportunity for them to change their life and show them the way to do that. But they have to make that decision to do that themselves, right?
Yeah. So, oh my gosh. Yeah. And I mean, I feel that same way. Like, even to be honest, like, I've had some readings where like spirit or guides are very brutally telling me to say, reflect the mirror back. And I'm like, like, it's really uncomfortable, you know, but it's like, I say this as like, hey, this is just what, you know, and we all need to have that mirror shown back of like, you know, take that responsibility, take that ownership. And sometimes it's like you said, really hard for people to hear. And like, I've seen this in comments on videos sometimes. There's like, how dare you? You don't know my situation. And it's like, I hear people and I get it. And like, it's real. Like, it's not to negate the fact that your situation isn't hard. Absolutely not. But it's just to come back. It's like, you said it perfectly. Like, we all play a part in our life. And if we were to say, you know, we didn't, and we're that victim, how would we have, honestly, in my opinion, it's like, okay, then you're just basically saying manifestation, it doesn't exist. Because it's like, if you aren't in control of your life, then you're not going to be able to create like this new, beautiful life, right? There's no way. So it's like, it comes full circle.
It's a way out. It's a way out of the suffering, because if we didn't have the opportunity to take responsibility, then we're at the effect of everything around us, which means we can't make any change, and we're just stuck.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is we're not stuck. We actually can make those changes. We just have to recognize that there is an option, even if it's like a little tiny baby step. You know, you don't have to dramatically change your life overnight, but just take
Yeah.
one little small step in that direction. And then the next step will appear in front of you. It will just continue to unfold. And so, again, that's going back to Bashar's teachings that I just love what he talks about.
Yeah.
But Clark Kent is asking here, can you define more of what you consider to be toxic positivity?
Oh,
So yeah, I'll just say from my perspective, it's just, you know, there are people who walk around in the world like everything's wonderful, everything's great, there's no problems. And if you just smile and put on a happy face and say your affirmations every day, your life will be fantastic. And
yeah.
those, yes, the affirmation piece is a nice thing to do. And I think there's benefits to that too. But there's more to it than just putting on a happy face. As you were saying, Katie, you have to dig deep and really discover what emotions are there as well and what those triggers are to unfold what's really beneath all of that. And there was one thing I just wanted to mention when you were saying this earlier in regards to emotions is,
Yeah.
you know, I have moments where I, out of the blue, I don't, for no reason, I'm not being affected by a situation or anything, but I have a moment of sadness come over me and I
Oh,
just allow it to come through and I'll cry. And sometimes it'll come through really fast. You know, it'll be like 5 minutes of crying, boom,
yeah.
it's gone. And I just wipe my tears and I move on. And I don't know why that is, but like, I think maybe it's part of one of the ascension symptoms that we're having. But the other thing I always joke with my friends about is you never want to sit and watch America's Got Talent with me because I am a
I,
blubbering mess every episode.
let me just tell you, random, but I also will go watch the Golden Buzzer clips
Yes.
too, and I bawl crying because of the utter joy
Yes.
I have for these people.
Yes. And I'm just so happy for those people. Like, I'm just like, this is their dream come true. Like, I'm witnessing somebody's dream come true. And like, you can see the joy and happiness on their face. And like, how can you watch that and just sit there and watch it? Like, for me, I'm an empath anyway. So I feel everything very deeply, but I just feel their energy and their emotion coming through the television. And I was sitting with a friend one time and she's like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just so happy for them.
So it is. I love that you do that because I showed my mom. She's like, "What? What?" And I was like, "How do you not feel this?" Like I will, and I
Right.
honestly think anyone listening, if you ever need a dose of happiness, look up Golden Buzzer, America's Got Talent clips, and like
Yes.
literally, I feel the same way. The emotion comes over me. There's actually this one, and I share this because it's just so funny. I don't know if you've seen the little boy. He's like a violin player, and
I don't know
he
if I've seen.
it's like I think it's an old one because I just look up the clips. But
Okay.
basically, he goes on and he plays the violin, and he's this shy little boy. Like he was bullied as a kid because he had cancer, and they called him like contagious, all this mean things. And he was so sweet and just like a little shy boy. He comes on the stage, he starts ripping the violin like crazy,
That's
and he was
awesome.
so good. He gets the Golden Buzzer, and they ask him. Simon's like, he's like, how are you feeling now? Can I ask you? And he goes, I feel really proud of myself. And he starts crying. And I
Oh,
was like,
yeah.
essence of all we truly want is like love, and it's to be
Yes.
seen and feel appreciative of ourselves. And that's honestly, I feel like tying back to toxic positivity, I feel like on an individual level, that's where like the brunt, I don't know if that's the word, like the heat of toxic positivity occurs. Like as you said, most people will feel that wave of sadness and they're like, okay, TikTok, or let me go eat something. Like it's like let's shove down all that we're feeling and not feel it. Like
Mhm.
so I feel toxic positivity is such on an individual level. It just comes from when we push those down. You know, I've my whole life, because I didn't know that, you know, until I got on the path. I never knew what I was doing. So feeling that insecurity, feeling that like ugliness in my body, you know, I struggled for a really long time with like really bad acne on my face. And I know women
Mm.
a physical level experience that, and it's like, okay, let's cover it up, let's not look at it,
Yeah.
let's pretend that we're pretty, let's get the selfie from the right angle. Like it's I
Mhm.
feel like that ties into it. And honestly too, I feel toxic positivity does tie into like social media, like right, like we see all these people sharing all the
Yeah.
beautiful parts of their life, the
Yeah.
travels. We don't see the moments when they're, you know, crying because they couldn't pay for their flight home, or
That's
you know,
right.
like we don't see all that because social media, it's like, let's
Mhm.
share the beauty of my life. And it's this
Yes.
trap that we've gotten into because, you know, and I was in this cycle, right? It's like, okay, well, this person's life looks perfect, so let's make my life look
Mhm.
as perfect as I can. And it's like this
Right.
repetitive cycle where no one's actually facing the fact that everyone on a deep level has pain and suffering inside of
Right.
them. So I do
Right.
feel like that's also a big realm, and why I feel like a big part of my purpose on YouTube is like, how can I be more honest with people and share that it's like, it's not all
Yeah.
rainbows and butterflies every day, you know? Like
Right,
it's
absolutely. We all have suffering, right? We all have challenges and, just because you don't see it in social media or we look a certain way, it doesn't mean we
yeah,
don't have our own challenges that we're facing. And I think it's helpful when we do share this with people because they can resonate with that and say, "Oh my gosh, I had the same issue too." And by the way, I also had the acne thing. I actually had to do Accutane
my brother
at one point.
almost
Yeah,
did. I don't know
which
why I didn't. It was that bad. Yeah.
you know what? It was a lifesaver for me.
Yeah.
Like and I know there's lots of warnings around it and there's a lot of people are
Yeah.
it's kind of very controversial, but it was a lifesaver. It made a huge difference. And so for me, I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
But I was in a sales job where I had to go out and meet clients face to face every single day. And I was embarrassed. I didn't want to, go out, leave the house. I was just like, how can I go and have a conversation with somebody when I look like this? So I am so grateful for that. I'm just going to put up, we've got a comment here. Hiker X says, Joe Dispenza said, affirmations won't work if you don't believe what you said or wrote. If deep down you have this belief, it either won't work or you don't believe it. Absolutely, 100%. You do have to address the underlying condition that
Yeah.
is causing those belief systems in order to truly move past them, right?
Yeah.
And then find that true happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just always comes back to, and I was culprit of this, like getting into the path. I'm like, okay, I'm going to say all these affirmations. My life is going to change. But it's like underlying there. What are the feelings that you're not addressing? Or like you're saying, it's all energy, right? If we're saying words, but our energy is emanating like the disbelief or like the fact that we're not worthy, you name it, we're not really making those changes. So it does take that like big, hard, radical responsibility adjusting it. And it is also a journey, I will say too. I feel like it's like, because I will say as well, and this I feel is where the toxic positivity does come into that mindset world. It's like, believe it, know it, and it's going to change your life. And it's like, I was okay, let's do all the affirmations, but things weren't changing. I wasn't seeing that effect. And it was like, I was just trying to cover up the fact of what was underneath. And that took me on a whole journey. So it's like, it is a whole journey, and there's things to help. I definitely was into like EFT tapping. It really helped me uncover those beliefs and like move through that. But I do feel like the feeling is a big part of it. It's like the feeling of just being so honest in every area of your life. And it doesn't always even have to mean like crying and feeling like I, for a long time, even have hard times. Like some of my friends cry for hours and hours. I'm like, I don't have that,
Yeah.
So it just takes, to be honest, like following your truth and seeing and being really honest with yourself,
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
also another comment. How does Katie feel right now intuitively going into Christmas and into the new year? Do we want
Yeah.
to change the subject, or did you want to go more into what we were talking about?
Well, I think we've got some other questions coming up too, but this is a great time to address this because we are getting ready to go into the holiday season and we're coming up on a new year. So, and it's an exciting new year too, I think. We've got a lot of great things ahead, but I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So it's funny. Everyone always asks me this, and I always say, because I feel everything on a very energetic level. So it's like, I, know that again, collectively, there's a lot going on for sure, but I'm always taken directly. Spirit pushes me towards the individual level. And what I will say is like, and we kind of said it in the beginning, you and I have been going through a bit of like crunchiness, craziness. November was crazy. December's a little crazier. But I do feel for a lot of people, it's like going to really be like a fresh energy next year. I just feel it strongly. I know I feel it for just so many people that I've talked to, because I just feel like this year was like so much karmic releasing and a lot of just like dense energies. Even people that I feel like weren't even aware of what they've been working through. But I've talked to some people who are just like, I've just been feeling so low for months. I'm like, you've been working on a lot of stuff, even if you're not aware.
Yeah.
So I just feel like, this next month, especially, it's like, it's really becoming lighter and lighter, and it'll become lighter on an individual level moving into the year. And this is why I say, I'm taking it to an individual level. Is I always say to people, it's like, don't focus on what's happening in the world. Don't watch the news. Don't focus on all the heaviness, because the fact is it's like, that doesn't have to affect you if you don't want it to, right? It comes back to like,
Right.
I'm a big proponent of saying, we all have our own energy field. We all can create a beautiful bubble of a safe haven in our life. And so if you focus on that and you feel that, this next year is going to be powerful and beautiful and epic, like it's going to be, your neighbor might be going through craziness, but that's their truth,
Right.
and that's their path.
That's
But it's
right.
like, always keep your eye on the prize and focus on you and what's ahead. And, that might be like your mission, your purpose, your gifts, a new career, you name it. But I do believe it's like, if that's where your focus is and your energy and attention, that's where the magic's going to unfold for you. But, the
Mhm.
world might, you name it. People ask me, like, talk about world war. I'm like, I can't, like, spirit will not let me talk about that, because that's not the focus. The focus
Right.
is your path. And I do believe, for instance, myself, like, I know this, my life is magic because I create that and I focus on that timeline, and not, a million other timelines that other people are channeling about or talking about. So I just say that to say,
Mhm.
it's like, I do feel it's like, especially who asked that question, and if you're listening, it's like, this next year, Christmas as well, is going to be such beautiful energy, and if those emotions keep rising, as I do feel like a lot of people, it's like, I almost feel a lot of it's in like the throat, like people are being called to like say some things to people that are uncomfortable, like speak some things out loud, and just be really, really honest with yourself, so that moving into this next year, all those creations you want to create, they're happening, they're already
Mhm.
yours, right? There's no waiting for it. It's already in your timeline. But just not focusing on the external and like the dense news and all of it will keep you in that heightened vibration and energy, and just like that love, and I also do feel, coming back to the emotions and like toxic positivity, it's like, not to say that that won't come up. I do believe, as we expand into such more like higher love, and as you kind of said, like, what's on the other side is something greater than we could have ever seen.
Mhm.
The pendulum always swings. I
Right.
experience most intense emotions every single day. It gets stronger and stronger, but then the love gets stronger and stronger. So it's like that path will also always be your own journey of like intensity, but it's not going to be you know suffering or hard unless you focus on that, right? So
Right.
I hope I answered the question about Christmas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to add to that, in regards to creating our own reality, and this is a concept that it took me a little while to understand this. So I want to just mention this because other people might be a little confused by it as well. When people say things like, well, that's my reality, that's not your reality. And like you mentioned, your neighbor could have one experience and you could have a completely other experience. What I realized was that in regards to the difference between our realities, it means that we're all vibrating at different frequencies, right? So the
Yeah,
frequency that my neighbor is operating at, different from my frequency, allows me maybe to open up to more experiences. It brings more into my life because I'm more open. I'm at that higher level of a vibration that allows me to see things that are completely unseen to him.
yeah,
So meaning the thing is still in reality. It's still a physical item, maybe whether who knows what we can use as an
yeah,
example, like a car, let's say.
yeah,
And he can't see it because it's just he's not vibrating at that same level as I am. So it took me
yeah,
a little while to grasp that concept. I actually almost really want to create some type of like graphical representation, or like do a little mini video, like create like an AI video to kind of explain, because I feel like a lot of people resonate more when they see like an imagery versus just hearing somebody explain it. So maybe I'll work on that next. But I love the way you just described that, and I think it's absolutely a great explanation. We do have another comment here, Clark Kent. Why do you think people so easily fall into playing the victim of their lives and blaming others for where they're at in life? And do you think part of it has to do with peer pressure? So
yeah.
I'll let you take
Yeah.
that one, Katie.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think it's such a natural instinct, right? It's so easy to blame everyone else but ourselves, because the minute we take responsibility, it's almost like a flooding back of everything we've done in our life comes forward, and you have to really own the fact that, you created, again, like, hard for me to even say this, but like, whatever those hardships in your life, right? You played a part. And I feel it's so much easier to just say, well, I didn't create this. And it also takes you off of the almost like the stand where you now are the creator, right? Like, the minute you take
Mhm.
responsibility, like, well, that's where the action starts. That's where things start to happen. And
Right.
you're the one that's steering the ship. And it's like easier when you're the passenger and you're sitting back and you're like, but I just think that that's a big thing, is I feel a lot of people deeply kind of have a sense of like, okay, well, the minute I make that choice, it's like things are going to change, right? Things are going to shift. And it's just confronting all of your quote unquote like dark parts all in the forefront of your mind. And
Yeah.
I just think it's way easier for people to not face that. But it's funny because it's such a like I don't know if the analogy is like double-sided coin. That's about might not be it, but it's so funny because it's like in essence, it's actually the harder route. Like it's making it so much harder because you're
Yes.
bypassing a life of pure magic and of like sovereignty and freedom, right? So it seems as though
Mhm.
it's free to just say, you know what, give it all away to that person, the
Right.
power. But really, you're actually exiting a life where you could tap into heightened timelines, like pure
Right.
like blessings and gifts in your life. So, but again, a lot of people, it's that mind, it's that conditioning of like, let's stay in fear, let's stay in lack. And I do feel it's just that's also the core reason of it is we've been programmed this way, right? Like it's a programming
Mhm.
that's playing small. We live in a world where, you know, unfortunately, there are forces and agendas that are not serving our highest good. And
Right.
so that's kind of another reason why we've just been forced to kind of be in this way of being. So
Right.
how does it has to do with peer pressure? I'm curious. I'm actually, I don't know. I feel like in a way, when I think of peer pressure, I just feel like maybe it's just the sense of like, well, your friends are doing it, right? I mean, I grew up, it's like, you know,
Right.
gossip, blame this girl, blame that girl. So it's like we just naturally, you know, being around people who are in that lower energy, we become that as well. So I feel
Right.
like that's where almost like peer pressure comes into it. You just do it because your friends are in this negative state of mind or whatever it is. So yeah,
Mhm.
and that's why I do feel like, you know, my journey and almost being like flooded back with all these memories of like everything we're talking about today, like the toxic positivity. Like I was deep in that, you know, growing up in school. You've probably experienced this. Is like girls that would gossip, and then it's like everyone was deeply insecure and hated their life. Like
Yeah.
there was so much, the depression, you name it, it was so heavy that I just think too a lot of people are so deep in that energy. It's like the easiest way to stay to just come to terms with the situation is saying, you know, I didn't choose this. This is such a hard life. Like
Right.
I just, there's no way I asked for this, you know, versus like the
Yeah.
minute. And Tony Robbins is a great example because I believe he does come from like a very like I don't know if he's like a poor background, but he didn't have a lot, you know, and he just made that
Right.
choice to change his life. And it's like get ready because that's when, like as I said, like craziness starts to go like in your life.
Right.
But that's like I feel like my what I'm getting at least for why a lot of people fall
Mhm.
into that. I'm curious your take on that.
Yeah, I think from a victimhood standpoint, I think number one, I think it's a comfort level. I think a lot of people, like you mentioned it a little bit there too, that it takes a lot of confidence. It takes a lot of, um, just awareness to step out of that comfort level of being a victim because there's such an unknown there, right? And also, I think it can tie back to ancestral lineage as well, because you can actually have that victimhood as part of your DNA. But
Yeah.
the great thing about that is you actually have the power to overcome that victimhood, not only for yourself, but for your entire lineage. Once you overcome that victimhood, it actually cancels that out for your lineage as well. And it continues like both in the past and in the future. So
Yeah.
that's what's so amazing about it. But I think it's an unconscious way of living where people just choose to be in a state where they can deflect what the responsibility is. And to me, I don't allow people to get away with that in my life. I do call people out on that, which does not make me popular at times. But I do it in a kind way. I'm very loving and kind about it. But it is something that I think you do need to reflect back to people when they are playing the victim mode. And by the way, the reason I can resonate with this is because I did the same thing.
I
Right.
love
So
that.
that's why I have this awareness and this understanding about it. I'll share a quick little story here is that I'm from the East Coast, I'm from Boston. When I first moved to California 20 years ago, I got into an energy healing class with a man who has since passed away, but he was a very influential person actually in the disclosure movement. And his name was Sergeant Carl Wolf, and he's referenced in quite a few documentaries about disclosure. And at the time, I got introduced to him through friends who were taking this class. So I took his class. He just it was a small group of people that met in his home in Los Angeles. And the way you actually got into his class was that you had to do what he called a skating diagnostic, where he had you meet to do inline skating. This is how old this was, 20 years ago. And I had actually never inline skated at that point. And he sent me this email. It was this big long email, and it had all these instructions. And it said, "Here's where I need you to meet. Here's what time. Here's how much money you have to have with you in cash. Here's what we're going to do." And so, and I can't believe I'm sharing this right now, but because I've never said this online before. I've told other friends this story. So I read the email, read it, and I set out that day for the appointment. Of course, I was running late because I live in Orange County, and so it's about an hour drive on a good day. And so I was running late, showed up, didn't have any money with me, didn't get the cash that he told me specifically how much money to bring. And I had none. So I show up and he's like, okay, well, you have to pay your meter. I was like, well, I don't have any cash. So he helped me with that because I just hadn't stopped at the bank. Then he's like, okay, well, we have to go. And he's like, first of all, you're late, and I'm like, sorry about that. So then we go, we do the inline skating. We have to purchase or rent the skates at the counter there in Santa Monica. And so I go up to the counter and the person at the counter says, okay, well, what do you need? And so I'm like, I don't really know what I need. Here's, what I'm told. And Carl was standing next to me at the time, just kind of watching this whole interaction. And so the person that I was engaged with was like, oh, well, I think you need this, this, and this. Well, Carl reprimanded him and said, no, do not tell her what she needs because because I work, he had a relationship with this person because this is where he brought all of his students. And he said, no, you know what she needs. So just give her what she needs. So in my head, I'm thinking that was kind of rude, And so anyway, he gives me the skates. He gives me elbow guards, knee guards. So we go and we sit down. We're in like the parking lot area of the Santa Monica Pier. And so I'm putting on the skates. Again, I've never inline skated before. So I really didn't know what I was doing. And I put on the skates first. And then I'm like, okay, well, what are these for? And they were like the elbow guards and the knee guards. He's like, well, figure it out. And I'm like, well, I'm assuming they go on joints. Like I can figure that out. But like, which one goes where? And he's like, figure it out. And again, in my head, I'm thinking, God, this is so rude the way he's addressing me, And so anyway, I continue to fumble around with it. At one point, I just am like, you know what? Don't worry about it. And I just toss it on the ground because I always use humor as my deflector. And so I end up, he's like, no, you need to put those on, figure it out. So he kind of forced me to figure it out. Anyway, I'll fast forward through a bunch because this could be a long story. So we get into the whole skating part of things, and he has me do a number of exercises where he leads me through like skating forward, skating backwards, holding my hand on the right side, holding my hand on the left side, skating like where he's in front of me, skating me forward, skating him backwards, vice versa. And he has somebody there, an apprentice who's videotaping us. And so once we completed the exercise, he played back the video for me. And again, skipping a lot of detail, he gave me his assessment. He's like, here's how you operate in the world. First of all, you didn't read directions. The email I sent you did not go over because you would have shown up with all the information and all of the things that you needed. You didn't bring the right cash. You showed up late, which is totally disrespectful to me and to you. And I was like, wow. And he said, then when you were getting the skates, the person that you were engaged with getting the skates from, he knows. He's like, I work with him all the time. He knows I bring all my students there. He knows what he's supposed to do. You got him through your energy, through your victim energy. You got him to talk to you and say, here's, well, oh, poor me, like the victim energy, poor me, I don't know what to do. Can you please show me what I need? And you got him to like start talking to you about what do you need? Oh, maybe what can I do to help you? He's like, that's why I interrupted and told him not to connect and try to share that information with you. Then you fast forwarded to when I was doing, he called it a skating diagnostic. So when we went through the skating process, he said, you were very strong on your right hand, which means you have strong leadership abilities. He's like, you were weak on your left hand, which means that, I forget exactly what that means, but he went through the whole list for me. But he did say, when you were skating forward, you were looking down at the ground, which means that you do not have a sense of looking into the future. You're just looking in the present moment. And he said, and when you were skating with me and you were skating me backwards, I had a sense of fear because you were not taking care of me. Like you were not considerate of making sure I wasn't going to fall down. And the reason, by the way, he chooses skating as his way of doing this diagnostic is because he could see the energy in the body and the flow of energy in the body, and he could read it better. So he knows, obviously we've got a male side and a female side of our body and how the energy flows through the body. So it was fascinating. And I will tell you, it was so eye-opening because from that day on, I'm not saying I've never been late again, but I do a very good job to try to always be on time, for the very reason that it's at the very least, it's disrespectful to the other person.
Mhm.
And that's something that's always stuck with me. So anyway, I don't even know why I told that story, but
Oh yeah,
oh,
it comes back.
because I was a victim. That's why.
That's
So
what
he
I
told
love.
me I was, yeah, he told me had a victim consciousness, and I hated that. Hearing that changed everything for
Yeah.
me. Once
No,
I
that's
heard him say that, I
powerful.
was like, I'm not a victim. And then I was like, no, 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 no. That's going to change now.
Yeah.
So
No, and that's I love that like that was experience for you because that changed your life, right? Like that
it
moment
did.
changed your entire life. And even though it was like a harsh truth, and yeah, maybe there's ways to deliver it more kindly. Like, no, like that honestly, I've had moments like that where I needed brutal truth because it's so
Right.
confronting. Like you will like feel crippling inside, like, oh my God, this person just fully like nailed me with this. But
Right.
it's yeah, it's and things like that too. Like most people would be in that situation and leave and completely forget about that and say, what a rude guy. Like, right. That was so
Right.
mean and forget it. You took the lesson from that and was like, how can I actually
Mhm.
like take what he said, no matter how
Yep.
harsh he said it, like there was some truth there and
Yeah.
turn that. So I love that you like had that experience. It's
Yeah,
powerful.
and I continued to work with him for a while after that, although the drive to LA became quite a bit because it can definitely be a long drive at times,
Yeah.
but yeah, and then he ended up retiring and he moved, back to the East Coast, but anyway, it was a great experience, and, I don't know where that came from. I'm shocked that I even shared that, but
Well, I
here
love
we
that.
are. So it looks like Hiker X says, I heard another lady who channeled spirituality and she said fear is stopping many from raising their vibration, fearing their family members will be left behind and that all will evolve. Yeah, I've heard similar fears come up for people. I think I'm assuming this is what you're referencing, Hiker X, is that when we're moving into this new Earth frequency, there's a reference point that we're leaving behind people, right? And I just had this conversation with another guest, but I'd love to hear, Katie, what you
Yeah.
have to say about that.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, this is literally, I've seen it in a lot of, and it's not to say like I have fear. We all have fear in one way. It's real. It's here. It's in the body, everywhere, all around. But there's like this sense almost of like, okay, well, and I almost even find this sometimes in the spiritual space of like, it's beautiful. Like, and I channel information about what's coming, but I feel like sometimes people could get too wrapped up in like, what's coming and how it's going to affect the world. It's like there's underlying fear there, right? It's like the same way that, we have news, right? What's the goal? It's to instill fear in people. Like, even if that's not
Mhm.
intentionally, like consciously the intention, it's the underlying, byproduct of everything in our world. So I just feel like, yeah, I wouldn't say it's like it's affecting people from raising their vibration because I feel like when you're on the path, you're already on the path, but it does stop a lot of people from again stepping into their dreams and their goals. Like, I always say, and my life has been this way, it's like because I've claimed a life and had that hunger for big dreams, like I have been called to expand beyond so much fear in my life. Like literally I've been called to invest in things, make choices that have been like terrifying. But what I
Mhm.
always say is like move through the fear. And my
Right.
friend told me this the other day, and it was like mind blowing, even though this is so like we know this. She was like, Katie, you've had so much fear. Because I told her, I was like, I've had so much fear all year. She's like, but Katie, you moved through it. That's called bravery. Like you are
Right.
not you in the essence of fear. That's you turning the fear into bravery. And basically that's like that saying, feel the fear and do it anyway. So yeah,
Right.
I feel a lot of people kind of get stuck in this trap of like getting so scared about what's coming or what's present in their life or not moving towards their dreams because it's scary. They're called to take
Mhm.
risks. And so it's easier again, let's take a step back and not follow through. But it's like you're being called, especially the ascension journey, whatever you want to call it, it calls for big leaps, big expansive leaps. And so if you want to experience that beautiful joy and that love that we keep talking about, you do have to make sure to move through the fear and just feel
Mhm.
it, do it anyways, because yeah, and that's when I would say is maybe it's like, stopping you from raising your frequency to a level that, you wouldn't had you stayed complacent. So, and yeah, coming to like the family members, I mean, I do feel like it's just the natural. We all want like our family members to be on this path and like have the understanding of what's happening with this new frequency on earth. And everyone's raising their consciousness. So when you're rapidly expanding and you notice your family members aren't, it can be scary. You're like, oh God, I'm gonna, change into this human and they're gonna be left behind. But it's like, again, it comes back to that knowing you're on your path, stay in your lane, and the people around you will reflect that, right? And I truly believe like that's where the power is. It's like if you're raising your frequency, moving beyond fear, you're actually helping your family members do the same thing, So I think that, yeah, it's a fear, it's real, but it's just, you do have to kind of step back and realize, like you are a soul here on a mission, and what people choose to do in their life, even if it's your family members, like that's their choice, that's their path and purpose, but your mission is what comes first. So
right. And I also think fear is just a belief, right? And so we need to uncover what that belief is. And I know Bashar always says, what must I believe in order to believe this is true?
Yeah.
And there can be layers to that. Once you uncover one layer of what you believe to be true that is causing this fear, you may not have gotten to the root cause, to the root fear, right? So you have to keep sometimes asking that question over and over and be willing to look at what the answer is and be honest about that. So it takes work. It's not an easy process to go through this personal development and the spiritual growth. So you do have to put the time and effort and the emotion into it, and really look introspectively at what your true belief systems are, because that's where it's coming from. And I think EP Pet mentions here, fear is a construct built into 3D matrix to prevent people and our earth from reaching our highest creative, benevolent potentials. So absolutely.
Couldn't have said it better.
Exactly. And Clark Kent said, sometimes it feels like when you're the only one looking at the positive in a bad situation, you are singled out. That could feel that way. I understand how that could feel that way.
Oh my gosh, 1,000,000%. I mean, just to go off that, I would say is like, and I am actually such a big proponent of like this path. And, I know you're aware of this, but like so many people forget that, you, especially on the ascension path, we're rarities out here. We're not like normal humans. Is like, you're going to trigger some people. Your positivity, your happiness, your joy, your consciousness is going to trigger the heck out of so many people on this path. And so, a lot of people, and I believe that's kind of going off what he said. I'm just trying to reread what he said. Yeah. Looking at the positive in a bad situation. Yeah, you're singled out. Yeah. So I've experienced this with friends, with family. It's like, what? Like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? But it's just like me staying in my, not only like that heightened vibration, but just like my perspective on the world, and like comes back to you owning your truth, right? Your truth is not always going to resonate with certain people. And so the more that you start to step into that truth of yours, which most likely is that more positive mindset and mentality and vibration, other people are going to look at you and be like, what the heck? Who is this new person? Or what are you doing? What do you mean? It's like, it also, I've actually noticed this when I had a period where I like just didn't drink alcohol, and I noticed the people around me almost like gaslighting me, or like trying to say like, come on, what are you doing? It like, cause that underlying trigger of knowing like they weren't doing that and they saw me prioritizing that for myself. So it's just, it will trigger people, but you have to really have that mentality of like, well, who cares, right? If you prioritize your dreams, your health, your goals, your life, like, some people might not agree, and that's just the reality,
I feel the same way. I feel like at some point you do get to the point where you're like, I don't care. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be the best me I can be. And if that bothers you, that's your problem. Wayne Dyer used to say, what you think of me is none of my business. And I love that because it's so true.
No, that's okay. Like, yeah. And it comes back to as well, like even, people that hold, it's kind of like the whole like forgiveness, or holding like judgments, or holding what's the term I'm thinking of, like resentment, and just like that anger towards someone. It's like that person probably has no clue, they're living in their own bubble, but if you're the one that's like angry and upset, like that's your reality. And the same goes for what we're kind of discussing here, is it's like if you're living in your lane and that person's judging you, like that's their problem, like that's their life. And I do think as well, it is a journey, kind of what you said. Like for me, this has been a big life journey of, it's not overnight that you're going to be like, I just don't care what anyone thinks about me. Like I came from being a crippling people pleaser, that it was such a journey, and I still have my days, but it's like the more you stay true to yourself, it becomes way easier to just come. You're going to just one day, you're just like you said, like, I don't care what people think of me. Like, it's just, this is
Right.
who I am.
Exactly. Exactly. And with the more that you are you, the more you allow people to be them too. So you reflect that back to them and you give them the permission to be able to be themselves.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about it. Hiker X, and we can wrap it after this because I know we've been going for over an hour, but what is the 3 days of darkness I keep hearing about? It was once 10. Is this a grid issue? Oh, I've never heard of it as being considered a grid issue. But Katie, do you have any input on that one?
You know what's funny? To be quite honest with you, Hiker X, I have no insight into this at all. I don't know. All I'm getting is, it's like, I don't believe it's a grid issue, but I'd love to see your take on it, Tara, because I don't have anything to do with
Yeah. So, okay, so I do have a little something I can share. So I just recently had an episode that we recorded with a guest who is very popular, and so that's going to be coming out here in the next few weeks. And she is tapped into channeling angels, and so this was a big conversation topic that we discussed in the episode, and her response to this was that, and this is what she's been getting from her angels downloading information, is that, and they talk about this in the Bible, right? The 3 days of darkness.
Yeah.
And this is going to be associated, possibly, I don't want to say for sure, but she's thinking it's associated with this great flash that's going to be potentially taking place, which ultimately will be a very large upgrade of information for our DNA. So this is how our DNA is going to get like rapidly upgraded in an instant. But during this 3 days of darkness, what will happen is basically the entire world will come to somewhat of a halt, right? Because it's going to be this heaviness that lays on us to the degree that we're going to want to just lay down and sleep. And that's actually the best thing you can do during this time, because your body will be able to integrate the energies for this DNA upgrade during those 3 days of darkness, they call it. And don't fight it. So that's her feedback, is don't fight it. Don't run around crazy and be scared. It's a time for reflection. It's a time to stay calm and just to allow the energies to integrate. This is something natural that's going to be occurring. This is something that's been written about in the Bible. And so we get into a lot more detail. So that Ann Tucker is the name of the guest. People may know who she is. And she's done tons of interviews, but we get into this pretty deeply in our conversation. So that's going to be coming up soon. So keep an eye out for that one. But that's what I'll share on that, is that we don't know when, by the way. We have no idea when this is going to happen. We don't know if it's in the next year, in the next 10 years. But it's been prophesied about for a long time. And her angels are saying, just do not go into fear. This is a time to really stay in a place of calm and, just try to rest, let the body rest during that time.
I was actually, now that we're talking about it, I was kind of getting out, seeing like people kind of running around in panic. And it's like a lot of people that aren't at that heightened consciousness, but people like, on the path, it's like, we have that awareness of like these types of things are happening. I know that a couple weeks ago, there was like a 2-minute pause in the Schumann resonance where like major upgrade happened. Right. And a lot of people probably I wasn't aware that happened until afterwards, but then I look back and like, that was a crazy day. So it just comes back, like you said, we got to just kind of, the fear is not what we want to tap into or let rise and attune to that.
Right.
We're bypassing the upgrades that we're getting,
Exactly. And we have a choice during that time to, this is our ascension. This is our choice to move to the 5D. So we want to stay in that place of calm and just peacefulness and just allow the energies to come in. So I do think it's a good thing, because I know Hiker X said sounds like a good thing. And I definitely do think that this is a good thing. And it's something that we should be excited for, because it's going to open the door to our new Earth future that we're so excited about. And so I just want to say thank you so much, Katie. This was so much fun. I love talking with you. You're always so insightful and you have such great information to share with us. And thank you for everyone in the comments who gave us a comment today and a question. We appreciate you. And just to let everyone know, Katie, where can they find you? I know you've got a YouTube channel and you've got a website as well. Can you share your information with us?
Yeah. So YouTube is where I am most of the time. So my YouTube is just Katie Horton. And it's, that's where I am posting, videos. So I post pretty much every other day, if not every day, videos. I do light code activations and intuitive readings as well, which are always in my bio or beneath my videos. And so, I'd love for you guys to come over and check out the channel. That's where I am, honestly, more than anywhere else on social media. So,
Absolutely. Definitely go check out Katie's channel. She's got so many great videos there. She does a video all the time. And she's got such beautiful backgrounds too. She's always by this gorgeous lake that's behind her. I just love, like, it's so peaceful looking. So, so thank you again. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your energy, and just want to say thank you so much for sharing your energy with us today.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you everyone for being here too. So much love.
Yeah. Thanks everyone. Have a great day today. Take care. Bye now.